You thought it would be obvious, didn't you? That the right one would appear with a halo of light and a beating heart. But what if Allah sent you much more subtle signs? Signs you may be unaware of. Signs you feel but can't explain. In this video, we'll dive into these mysterious moments, these almost invisible clues, these deep sensations that don't lie. Because sometimes, when it's truly the person you're destined to love by Allah, something unexpected happens. And you'll finally understand what it is. 1. The moment everything changes. You weren't even really looking anymore. You were living. You were slowly catching your breath after too many long seasons of doubt, falls, and silent wounds. You told yourself, I'm focusing on myself, on my connection with Allah. The rest will come, maybe. But deep down, you no longer really believed in maybe. And it's often at this precise moment that everything changes. Not with a bang, not like in the stories they tell you, but like a light rain after a long drought. You hardly hear it, but you feel it. This person enters your life without fanfare, without a perfect script. No special effects. Just an encounter. Simple, human. But in this simplicity, there is a peace you've never tasted. No butterflies in your stomach. Rather, a relief in your heart. As if something inside you had been waiting for this moment without putting it into words. As if your soul were gently saying, here it is. And you don't understand everything. You have no proof. But there is a strange clarity, not an obsession, not a rush, something obvious. You don't see perfection before you, but you feel a rightness. As if every hurt you've experienced has been a preparation. As if every no before has been a direction towards this very precise maybe. And then a thought crosses your mind. Could this have been written all along? You look at this person, and it's not their appearance that stops you. It's the peace you feel in their presence. It's that gaze that doesn't seek to change you, nor to impress you. It's this silence between two words that doesn't make you uncomfortable. Because when Allah wants to teach you the truth about someone, He doesn't fill your head. He enlightens your heart. And in this suspended moment, you understand that it's not emotion that's speaking. It's your fitra, that part of you that nothing in this world has been able to alter, the one that recognizes light when it crosses paths with another. But don't imagine a fairy tale, because this bond wasn't born easily. It was born from your journey, from your trials, from your half-healed pain. You were broken, you made mistakes, you loved wrongly, you gave too much, or not enough. But this time, it's not love that makes you run away from Allah. It's an encounter that brings you back to Him, slowly. That's the sign, the real one. When you don't feel your nafs stirring, but your heart aligning. And maybe this person hasn't asked for anything. They haven't tried to seduce you. They're just there. And yet their presence has the taste of a dua answered, not word for word, but word for soul. It's not that you want it to be him or her. It's that for the first time, you no longer feel the need to force anything. Everything that exhausted you in the past no longer exists here. There's no more mask, no more fear of being too much or not enough. You are you. And perhaps that's the strangest thing. It's not passionate love that makes everything vibrate. It's that silent serenity that tells you, you don't have to run anymore. You don't have to prove yourself anymore. You can just walk with Him towards Allah. But be careful. That moment, that subtle shift, it's not there to make you dream. It's there to wake you up. Because when Allah brings you to someone who was written for you, it's not a privilege. It's a responsibility. And it all begins there, in that shared look, in that sudden peace, in that something you've never felt before and that you still can't explain. 2. Tranquility as a response. There are times when you don't need visible signs. No need for outbursts, proof, or even grand declarations. You just need to feel. Not in your mind, not in your imagination, but in a much quieter place. Your heart. And that day, you feel it. Like a veil slowly being lifted from your eyes. Not because everything is becoming clear outside, but because for once, it's no longer chaos inside. Do you remember? All the times you thought it was the one, but your heart was restless. Your mind was screaming, your sleep was fleeing. And despite all the fine words, there was this weight, this doubt, this tension that you called attachment, but which was only the fear of losing what wasn't truly yours. But now, it's different, radically different. It's not an absence of emotion. It's a silent, reassuring presence. A peace that doesn't come from the words the other person says to you, but from what your soul no longer says. It doesn't struggle. It doesn't scream. It calms down. You no longer have this inner pressure of having to be perfect or to please at all costs. You no longer have this feeling of playing a role, of stifling what you are, of hoping that the other person will choose you as we beg the world to validate our worth. No. This time, you are not chosen despite who you are. You are chosen because of who you are, and that changes everything. This calm doesn't come from an excess of certainty. It comes from something much rarer: trust without possession. You control nothing. You don't yet know what the future holds, but you know that you can move forward together, without having to hide your wounds or disguise your light. And that is an immense gift. Because sometimes, Allah doesn't send you answers in the form of a clear yes, or wide open doors. Sometimes, He sends you a sensation, an inexplicable calm, a rest for the heart, an inner sweetness that says to you without words, you can stop here for a moment. You are safe. It's not that the doubts disappear, but they no longer dominate. It's not that you're 100% sure, but you no longer feel the need to be. Because for the first time, you know that faith can exist even in the dark, and that love, true love, doesn't come to dispel uncertainty. It comes to teach you how to live with it, in peace. And there, in that almost sacred calm, you realize that maybe this is the true sign. Not the shivers, not the emotional intensity, not the idealized scenarios, but this newfound ability to breathe gently when you're with this person. This gaze that doesn't press, this voice that doesn't judge, this silence that doesn't frighten. What if it's not the perfect person you've been waiting for, but the one who helps you become the best version of yourself before Allah? What if true tranquility wasn't the absence of external tensions, but the end of internal wars? You don't need everything to be clear right now, because deep down, the clarity is already there, not in the details, but in the direction. Not in the will it last, but in the do I feel drawn back to Allah through this peace. And you know what? That's enough. Perhaps it's even all you've been waiting for without knowing it. 3. Is this really a sign? You ask the question silently, or perhaps in your du'as at night between tears. You say, is it Allah who is guiding me to this person? Or am I lying to myself? You seek a miracle, something obvious, a certainty that would sweep away all your doubts, all your contradictory impulses. But What if the miracle were already there, right in front of you, in a form you refuse to face, because it's too simple, too sober, too silent? So let's ask the real questions, not the ones that flatter the heart, but the ones that enlighten it. Does this person push you to become more aware of your relationship with Allah? Not with their words, with their presence, by what you feel after seeing them. Do you feel more humble or more carefree? Do you want to pray more sincerely, or do you even forget about your meeting with the Creator? Ask yourself one more question. When you're with this person, even just in thought, is your heart at peace? Not just happy, peaceful. As if a part of your soul has finally found a place to rest without being judged, without being emptied. Or is your heart constantly in a state of noise? Do you smile on the surface, but burn with anxiety as soon as you're alone? Do you feel deep down that something is wrong, even though you do everything not to listen? And now, answer honestly. Does this relationship help you avoid sin? Or camouflage it with spiritual excuses? Are you becoming a better person, more real? Or are you gradually fading away to maintain this connection you're afraid of losing? Do you want to know if it's a sign from Allah? Look at what it provokes in you, not just what you feel, but what it silently builds or destroys. Because true signs don't necessarily make the heart beat faster. Sometimes they calm it. They align it. They quietly remind it of what's essential. And that's where many people go wrong. You think that what is destined is what attracts you the most, what moves you, what thrills you, but sometimes what Allah has written for you doesn't shake your world. It puts it back in order. It puts your inner Qibla back where it had been. And you breathe better. But be careful. The answers you seek won't always come with external evidence. They will come with your inner courage. The courage to ask yourself the right questions and to listen to the right answers, even when you don't like them, even when they don't confirm what you hoped for. Because a sincere heart doesn't just seek what pleases it. It seeks what brings it closer to good. And that is perhaps the greatest sign of all.
4. When you almost gave up on the very idea of love. There was a moment, perhaps more than one, when you said to yourself, "Love isn't for me." Not with bitterness, not with anger, just with that silent fatigue. The kind you don't show, the kind you carry around. You had closed your heart, not because you didn't want to love anymore, but because you were tired of suffering for people who didn't know how to love. You gave. You gave too much. And in return, you received only silences, absences, misunderstandings, promises that crumbled without warning. I love yous disguised as dependencies. Relationships where you lost yourself, broke yourself, emptied yourself. So you decided to give up hope. You began to believe that perhaps sincere love only existed in words, childhood dreams, or the stories told to soothe souls too lonely. And you continued to live with this emptiness well hidden beneath routines, obligations, ambitions. A void that even prayers sometimes could no longer fill, because deep down you doubted that your heart could ever love again, without losing itself again. And then there was a reversal, an invisible reversal, not sudden, not spectacular, just something began to heal. Allah touched a pain that you yourself had stopped looking at, and gently He mended it, not with dazzling miracles, with simple encounters, just words, a look that asked for nothing, a voice that didn't judge, and above all, a person who didn't want to change you, just to understand you. And then you understood
that when it's the right person, you don't feel the need to hide. You don't have to play a role. You don't have to wear a mask. You can just be. And that's when you cry inside, not with sadness, with relief. Because you realize that all this time, you didn't need a perfect love. You needed a love that accepted you in your imperfection, a love that doesn't rush, a love that listens to you even when you don't know how to put it into words, a love that looks at you with gentleness where others have looked at you with expectation. And you realize that it wasn't this person who healed your heart. It was Allah. Through this person, it was He who knew. It was He who heard what even your tears no longer said. It was He who made you capable of loving again, without fear of losing your soul. And you see, this kind of relationship, this kind of bond, it's not a mere coincidence. It's not just someone good. It's a sign of mercy, a reminder that even when you give up on the idea of love, He never gives up on the idea of fixing you. You thought it was over. You thought you no longer deserved anything true. But now He's teaching you once again, your past doesn't decide your future. Your mistake doesn't nullify your worth. It's not your damaged heart that's keeping you from loving. It's only your fear that it will be betrayed again. And that fear, Allah can soothe it, not by erasing your story, but by putting someone there who understands it. Someone who doesn't run away when you tremble. Someone who doesn't despise what you've been through. Someone who looks at your scars and sees light, not shame. You didn't think you could open your heart again, and yet here it is. It's opening slowly, not out of weakness, but because it has found, finally, a safe place.
5. When paths cross with meaning. Somewhere in the immensity of destiny, there are invisible roads that only Allah knows, ribbons of stars woven in the silence of the sky, stretching beneath our feet without us grasping their thread. Imagine these paths. Sometimes they start from opposite places. He walked in the shadow of an inner chaos, where pain resonated louder than laughter. She came from a valley of trials, a waterless desert where every step seemed a struggle. Each had forged their own story in solitude, in the harshness of an existence in search of a divine word. And yet, in the great workshop of mercy, these two roads headed towards each other, like two dry rivers that unknowingly followed the same underground bed. At first glance, they are strangers. At second glance, souls rediscovering a forgotten resonance. See this. Every scar he bore, every fatigue it carried, suddenly fell side by side, like pieces of a divine puzzle assembled after so many years of searching. Old tears find their complement, cracks speak to each other's, and in this silent dialogue, a new song takes shape. Look at the horizon. There was no visible call, no flashing sign to signal this crossroads. Yet the universe orchestrated this meeting in secret, whispering to the stars to keep watch, inviting the winds to blow in the same direction. Every breath, every rustle of leaves, every heartbeat wrote this sacred convergence. Suddenly, everything becomes clear. What seemed like a series of failures reveals itself to be meticulous preparation. Each of your tears, each of your emotional upheavals was not a cruel coincidence, but an inner staging intended to bring you here, towards each other. And when your souls meet, it's as if a silken veil is lifted. Suddenly, you perceive the beauty hidden in the contrasts, the sweetness of peace after the storm, the certainty of the hand reaching out where you would have welcomed a sign. In that suspended moment, the echo of your suffering becomes melody. The wounds still bleed, but their pain transforms into gratitude, because each blow has made you true beings, ready to build a love beyond illusions, solid as a rock amidst the tumult. and see how the light plays on your faces. It reveals the strength of your hearts, armored by experience, and the tenderness emerging from a trust that is anything but naive. This is not an idealized tale. It is an act of divine creation, where two imperfect hands together forge a bond of soul more powerful than any human promise. Do you still believe that love is mere chance? Look at the course of these paths. Each of your steps, every turn you have taken, every detour has brought you closer to this precise point, where the universe has decided that your paths would no longer remain parallel. There is no error in this weaving, no blind coincidence. There is the imprint of a wisdom beyond our calculations, and when your stories intertwine, it's as if Allah sculpted a masterpiece from what you once were and what you are becoming together. Imagine for a moment. These crossed paths become an intimate sanctuary, a cathedral built deep in your hearts, where each stone is a trial overcome, and each arch is a smile rediscovered. You breathe in this atmosphere. You smell the incense of destiny. You hear the whisper of the divine, whispering to you that nothing is lost, that everything is transformed. And suddenly, you are no longer the same. She is no longer quite who she was. You look at each other, aware that you have been chosen for this sacred dance. Partners who learn from each other, not to fill a void, but to celebrate the fullness that mercy offers to those who dare to walk without looking back. But remain vigilant. This poetic journey does not end at the crossroads. It is not enough to meet. We must learn to walk side by side, under the gaze of Allah, with the same faith with which you agreed to find each other. And this is where it all begins.
You know, recognizing the person Allah has placed for you isn't a matter of perfect romance. It's a matter of inner peace, of guidance, of truth, and above all, of divine timing. So if this video spoke to you, if it touched something within you that words can't express, subscribe. Because it's not just a video. It might be an answer to a dua you've been making without realizing it. Like, share, leave a comment, and tell me, have you ever felt that someone could be the one Allah is sending you? Because sometimes asking the question is already putting you on the right path.